broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing after shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hello, AfterBuzzers! Welcome to The People vs. O.J. Simpson, American Crime Story. Season 1, Episode 6, titled Marcia, Marcia, Marcia. Directed by the lovely Ryan Murphy. We'll talk about his style later. I'm Pegah Rad. You can find me on Twitter at Pegah Rad.
I'm Stephanie Giorgi. You can follow me on Twitter at Stephanie Giorgi. Also, Feliz Dia de las Mujeres. Happy International Women's Day.
I'm Shaka Smith. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Shaka Strong.
Chris Howard at Chris Howard Live on Twitter, and also at legendarylivingdaily.com and legendarylivingtv.com for YouTube.
Awesome. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to our channel, check out all the other videos that we have, find us on iTunes, give us 5 stars, pretty please, and comment. We want to hear from you guys. Also have a couple shout outs for our YouTube viewers. We have David1555, Master Chief, Lynn Reed, Jessica T, Street Angel, Adrian Kidd, Mustafa Ahmad, Kelly Hope, hello, Blue Textbooks, Flavian Emmanuel, and I'm going to butcher this one, DePapaloin Paradise. Thanks so much for commenting. Keep them coming. And we also have a word from our sponsor, Blue Apron.
And it's a new one, y'all, so bear with me.
Y'all.
All right, looking for a cool and creative gift to get someone you like? Imagine how happy they'd be when they got home from an exhausting day at work and all the ingredients to a delicious, healthy dinner was right there waiting for them. Come on, you know that everyone's lives are crazy busy these days, and people with kids never have time to shop after work. So help them out by getting them a subscription to Blue Apron. How about someone who just had a baby, can't even get out of the house, or maybe newlyweds who want to pop open a bottle of wine and cook a romantic meal together? Blue Apron is a gift they're guaranteed to love, because Blue Apron provides the ingredients and instructions how to make amazing meals for less than $10 per meal. And get this, each meal can be prepared in 40 minutes or less. Plus, Blue Apron has meals for all dietary needs. You can make dishes like chicken, cacciatore, or kimchi, right? Cacciatore or kimchi and barley miso ramen, right in your own kitchen. Cook with ingredients like you've never used before, like watermelon radishes, farro, and purple potatoes. And the recipes are between 500 to 700 calories per portion. Delicious and good for you. Right now, you can get your first 2 meals for free at blueapron.com/podcast. That's blueapron.com/podcast. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. Yeah.
The Gemini twins wanted to speak it together.
All right, guys, so this episode, Marcia, wow, my heart just broke for her.
Yeah.
I mean, I had no idea that she had so much going against her with the media. I guess I was just too young to remember, and it just, I don't know, it slipped my mind, but everywhere from the way she looked to her kids and that trial, her ex-husband coming after her. I mean, it was just awful.
It is, and people don't, they have to remember that it is hard for a woman, especially in this time when we're not prone to be like, for instance, if something were to happen now, I think that I would, if I was her friend, I'd be like, girl, who cares? Stand there and be like, and what? That's me naked when I was younger. That's not my fault. I didn't do that myself. I didn't give it to the magazines.
Right.
But it's, no, you can do nothing about it. And like she said, she's not someone who's used to being in front of the camera and exposed in that way. And then for her to come in and for the judge to say, I think, hi, Mrs. Clark, I think,
it showed you the sexism of the time.
Oh my God.
And she's walking in and she's only got Sean Chapman's the only other female that's there. So she's really dealing with this boys club, and it's can only imagine how intimidating it was with that kind of presence around.
So emotionally draining, and then her personal life being exposed like that by her, come on, man.
And it happened overnight essentially for her,
Right?
Yeah, and I think it spotlighted really that sexism was, you can't say as much as an issue as racism in this, but it was definitely, it was present. Yeah, we had all these themes that were intersecting, and what I really liked about this episode was that they made the characters, they turned them into real people for me in this episode.
Yeah.
Seeing Chris Darden really come alive.
That's a great way to put it. Exactly.
Yeah.
It was almost, I wonder if they coincided it with International Women's Day, because it was kind of that spotlight was on this episode, right? You
Just
know?
so great.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just crazy. It's proof that, again, words hurt as much as they say. What is the saying? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. It's not true.
Yeah. So she's going through the custody trial, or is it the divorce trial or custody?
Custody.
Did we find it is
Custody,
custody, right?
yeah.
Okay. At the same time as this, so she's literally leaving one trial to go to the other, and it starts to kind of mess with her head a little bit, and we see that throughout the episode.
Very rough time for her.
Definitely
Very,
a rough
like,
time.
Way too much going on.
I would probably crumble, and I consider myself a strong woman. But let's talk about her appearance. So unfortunately, she sees herself on TV. They're ripping her apart. What did they call her? Frump incarnate.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And I think Gil was Garcetti was telling her, don't watch TV. Don't let that affect you, because you will bring it into the courtroom. And we saw kind of the unfortunate,
Truth in that.
Exactly.
But do you think he was right in saying that?
Absolutely.
Do you?
Yeah, she shouldn't have been watching TV. She should just be focused on the case.
Do you think it wouldn't get into her head, like the value that could be gained from watching whatever was coming or whatever people were talking about would be not worth it?
No, yeah.
Yeah. So you think she'd be better off being
Because
sequestered
once you have your jury picked, you're not worried about potential jury pool and what they might be hearing. Then
because they're not hearing anything.
Exactly.
Either.
So I would just cut myself off from that media.
Would you be able to? I don't think I would be able to.
I would have to. It would seem.
You would have to.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be more or less a little easier then to have done that. Maybe not now, because your phone's being blown up by tweets and or YouTube comments saying things about you that aren't true. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so, but it happens. Sorry, did you see that?
Yeah. I see what you did there. I like what you
We
did.
get what you're laying down.
I like what you did.
But it's one of those things, and I think it would have helped her. However, I can't decide if maybe someone should have gone up to her and spoken to her as far as the whole, when the jury's like, oh, she looks like a bitch, like if she should have softened her appearance for that reason, or if she should have not thought about it all, because then she's going to spend time looking in the mirror or going to salons and trying to fix herself when she needs to be dedicating herself
Well,
to
you
this
bring in
case.
consultants for that, and that's why he says, we have media personnel. So you bring in consultants for that type of work, but you should not be, watching
That
TV.
involved.
Yeah, that involved, especially in a case like this.
See, what's surprising to me is that Gil Garcetti was so, or at least he was portrayed in this. I always have to remember that these are portrayals; they're not the real people.
guy.
Yeah, but that he was so resistant to want to tell her to get herself together so that she could make the best case. And it's the same thing that they did with Chris Darden when they said they didn't come out and say, "Yes, you're great for this because you add color to it." And because you're black and it's going to even things out, why can't people just talk to people and just tell them the truth?
I think it's a sign of the times and the tension.
Sure.
You're in a legal workplace with all attorneys. You don't want to be viewed as sexually harassing Marshall Clark in any way, or telling her to soften up or be more like feminine. You don't want to be accused of that, even though it might be called for based on the optics of the trial and what's going on in people's heads.
And there wasn't really human resources the way that it is now, so you're more or less safe to say anything, not safe to say anything now. But I think people take it less to heart because less people care. So it was just barely being presented, and everyone was still sensitive.
You can feel the tension on the screen of like him having to tell her that.
Yeah. So we're in the courtroom, and Detective Van Adder is on the stand. And Johnny Cochran, such a brilliant scene where he's like, why do you feel like you needed to take 3 cops away from this active crime scene, take them to Rockingham, where you normally wouldn't go right away to go inform an ex-husband of the killing? So what do you guys think about that?
I remember when it really happened, and it's a valid point. And I think they're not telling the truth, quite frankly. I think they went over there because there was a history of domestic abuse, and they really thought that potentially OJ could do it, and they wanted to go find out what was going on. I do not think that they were looking out for his safety at that point.
Right, they're trying to catch him on some stuff.
They made that up. They're full of shit.
And I think that's where Johnny was brilliant, was he said, okay, maybe they did lie in small ways to get the right outcome. So let's just focus a little bit of time, because if they made small lies, then we can get the jury to believe they made big lies. And now now we can get the jury to believe they wanted an outcome that they believed was true.
They're telling that story.
And so Johnny is so good at weaving that narrative, you know.
Absolutely. And I think it's like any other situation in your life where you come across a person who may have lied to you about something small, and then something else happens, and the first thing you think is like, especially nowadays, because we feel that we can't trust anyone because we know how people are, you're like, no man, because you know, if you, what is it, if you lie you cheat, if you cheat you steal, if you steal you kill.
It's
like,
who you are.
yeah.
Right. But it's you know, that's why they can't cross the line in investigation. There's things that you don't
That's
do.
protocol
You
for a
don't
reason.
plant
Chain of-
evidence.
yeah, exactly.
You don't make it look like that, but it happens, and it happens every day.
Sure.
And hence the reason why they had such a strong case, because that's why the case eventually went the way that it went, was because they were able to prove reasonable doubt that the police actually did plant things, and quite frankly, they might have.
Yeah, I thought that chain of custody where, you know, the guy took the shoes to Simi Valley. That was,
I was just gonna be
that was so powerful, because and he couldn't say on the stand that he had done that with any other piece of evidence, because what would have happened is they would have had to go and look back at those other trials,
And he would have been discredited
and seen
in general.
if that evidence, it would have called for new trials for that piece, those other pieces of evidence. So it really hemmed him up to ask him that question. So if he had taken home other pieces of evidence, he couldn't possibly say he had.
Yeah.
When Johnny Cochran was outside of the courtroom talking to what was the detective's name? Did anybody catch that? The one that went to Simi Valley.
Yeah, with the glasses.
When he was talking to him.
See, I don't know if that was that Lang or Van Adder that was on the stand at first.
At first was Van Adder, but then the other guy with the glasses that went to Simi Valley, I forget his name.
Yeah,
But was he talking to him, trying to pull something out of him at that moment?
Sure. And to see, I think just specifically to see where he lived, to even maybe to find out if it would even be worth it bringing it up, because I saw all of that, and you just saw his heart drop the second he looked at everyone else and was like,
and we found out that's where the cops from the Rodney King
beating.
So once he heard that clicked for him. Okay, now I can just put these dots together.
And there's no connection really, but
no, but
the moment he drops that in the mind of the jurors.
But he's saying it in regards to being in an environment that allows something like that.
I'll take that back. I'll take that back. Yeah, because if that was the place, then we're saying that racism was alive and well there.
And accepted.
And accepted.
I just can't believe he was talking to him with such guards down. You know, just kind of like shooting the shit with his...
Well, because he knew him, and Johnny Cochran, he's not this racial person all the time, even though he is known for that, to be a fantastic representation of it. But at the same time, he's just like everybody else. Like, he's more than capable to have a conversation and be friends with a white man. It's just that...
And then police and attorneys are often friends because they see each other at the courthouse all the time.
All the time.
So,
So he played it right, just like a regular day, but played him at the same
Yeah,
time.
he played him. That was exactly it.
Right. But then Shapiro gets on the stand and even nails it even further by saying, so wait, in your long career, this is the only time you took the evidence home.
And he has to say yes, because you can't go and validate the other trials.
Absolutely.
What was really interesting about Shapiro, because you saw him, that was like one of the last scenes in this one where he was really prominent, and the rest are coming out, F. Bailey and all those guys, and it just seems to me that Shapiro, he was the one that was kind of walking the line and not wanting to make the case be about anything other than what he saw it as really being about, which was the murder. The murder of these two people.
Shapiro, I thought, was the one who wanted it to be about race.
Well, he reached out to help to F. Lee Bailey, and then but then they all kind of turned on him.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was saying, well, the case is about this. I can see why it went the way it did, but it's interesting how his role plays out in the case, and really where he was coming from in it. He wasn't going to make it about all these other things. And the other people said that's not the way to win the case.
Right.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And I think you saw the little bit of tension when he shows up late again. He's showing that, look, maybe I'm on your team, but I'm not on your team. And I think we'll see that in from the previews and later episodes.
To see if he really is making stuff worse.
Yeah.
That ego. Darden and Marcia.
What a love story, right? Unexpected love story.
And I want to know, and I want to do more research about this, but if you guys know, please comment. Did they have a real life romance?
Yeah, not as far as I know.
He won't say.
He won't say.
I mean, late nights, and when you see, I can only imagine a man seeing a woman for her true self, meaning the work that she does and what she's capable of, and just because she doesn't execute it as well as others do, that doesn't mean he can't find her attractive. But I have to say that the writers did such a good job at letting me see Mr. Darden this way.
She was like,
I was like, woo!
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
I think it was that soundtrack. The soundtrack.
The soundtrack, but even the way he was talking, he's like, "Woman, come here." I'm like, oh, "Tell me what to do, baby." That's what I'm saying. But if
Stephanie got hot.
I did. If things like that happen in the courtroom, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes you gotta like release some stress, and so maybe they needed to do that.
What are you suggesting, Stephanie?
I'm suggesting a good conversation and nice dancing.
Okay. Just checking.
So we see that he's a little bit scared about Furman coming onto the stand tomorrow. But Marcia's like, be confident, we got this. He's going to repeat the details of the trial immaculately, and it's going to match up. And he's so...
And he did. Furman, would you not say that he was like...
He did.
Wonderfully educated and spoke well? And
But that was Johnny's warning to him, too. That's where it comes back. Because I didn't get that. You all got it.
Yeah.
I didn't get it when Johnny was saying, don't be the one to put Furman up.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so he was doing right by Chris Darden, and he was trying to give him a warning.
And that's just
what was
something.
going to come. He said, let the white people do it. Yeah.
And that's just something you can't. That's where Marcia had to trust that the case was about race, and then would have to trust Darden's instinct. So without that, there's no way she'll see that coming, because Darden was making his assumption based on his feeling, because he saw how uncomfortable he was when he was with Furman. He just didn't feel right about the guy.
Right.
And I think that was because the guy is a racist. Sure. And so I think, but there's no way for her to be able to heed that, and there's no way for Darden to say that to her without explicit evidence of it for himself.
Right.
Stephanie said when it was happening, she's like, she's overconfident. And I think that nailed it and sums it up totally. It's like she was going in overconfident.
To some degree, because I've been thinking that a lot myself, and I'm like, wait, I'm looking at this hindsight 2020. I know the guy's racist. I know he's going to lie in the stand.
Right.
She was looking at the evidence she had, and this guy came off like perfect, polished. She's asking him 3 times, and he's always giving the same responses. So I don't want to
hiding stuff too. Like the Lancito's wife signing off that Furman was a good witness.
Yeah. So so they don't know that. So overconfident, or maybe just rightly confident in what she had before her.
Rightly confident, but I'm saying, why wouldn't you? Specifically, when Chris Darden says, why are they like acting excited about doing that?
Yeah.
So I would think, as a defense lawyer, or just in a position like that anyways, you would have to think of both sides. Like, you're right. Okay, so let's look into it a little bit more, because I get that you may have all the points perfectly, but wouldn't you think that sometimes, like, just as a regular person, you might like slip up a little bit? Like, that doesn't sound too rehearsed to you?
Well, sometimes you have the gamesmanship of the defense, so you don't know if they're kind of like trying to prod you into not putting them up, And then at the same time, they just have limited resources. They can't hire investigators to like vet every single witness with the kind of fine-tooth comb you would if you have just unlimited money. And so I think with what they had, which they thought was adequate, they thought they had done enough to feel confident in what and in the past they have been confident, and they've won. And Marcia she had a great record before that, so
they didn't know what to expect.
So so I think she was rightly confident. It was just,
I guess you're right. You're way better rightly confident, but it was a lot.
But remember Michael Freeman, when he came in here, he said that the whole thing displayed. It was his opinion that it was Marcia Clark's overconfidence and inadequacies that destroyed the case, according to him.
Yeah, I will definitely hear inadequacies. But at the same time, it's a money game. So I always say you can only do what you can pay for.
Absolutely.
Right. So they have that moment in the office. They're slow dancing, and then he calls that radio show to vote. What is it, Babes or Babe?
Yeah, did that happen? Did that happen?
Maybe. Babe.
I love that.
That was
I vote
great.
Babe.
He was falling for her.
Yeah, and then he greets her the next morning. She shows up to the courthouse.
He greeted her like they did do something last night. He was like, thank you. Like, that's what he said.
But remember, she said she was working all night long last night. I thought she was going to be in the bed when they panned the camera over. And it was like, and I know you ladies were waiting for that. You were like,
It was cute to see, and that, this is the one thing about men and women in the workplace, and why they say you can't date, because it really does complicate things. So I'm sure if they did have something, they would never dare tell anyone, just so that they wouldn't be discredited themselves.
Yeah. Exactly.
But
happens.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, because I could only imagine in a time specifically where she was at, damn, would you not look for that? And
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like in a time of weakness, like
Thanks for keeping it real here, girl.
Everything is yes, everything is no, absolutely. If everything is crashing down, and then
And she had no support.
and, you know, he understands her. He understands the stresses that she's going through in the trial, and how he has a daughter that we found out in this episode that he wasn't there for, and so there's some things that they can really
connect on.
Sure.
And it's really, I mean, we're talking about it, but it's really none of anybody's business because they're two grown adults. They can do what they want, and they were a support system that were there for each other at a very difficult time. And when we saw all the pressure that Marcia was under here, I mean, I certainly wouldn't wrong her for doing something like it's like that.
I wouldn't either, especially if it was
to 'em.
discussed between them. Like we're more than capable of keeping this professional.
But it certainly wouldn't have been good if it came out.
Oh my
No,
God, no,
I mean,
no.
if you add that to the naked pictures in the paper and all those
God.
types of things, it's like it adds up. Yeah.
So we're back in trial, and Rosa Lopez is apparently leaving the country, and they need to bring her on before it was planned.
Boy, was that a
Pegah,
circus.
legally, tell me about
Well, and I think that's why you saw Atlanta wanted to hold a hearing to make sure, you know, what's really happening here. But they didn't because of Marcia's childcare issues, which was kind of bizarre to me that he said, you know, well, she'll testify since you need to be home.
Right.
I guess there wasn't that sensitivity for women in that time. But yeah, so getting that, if that's the only time she's available, you know, that would be appropriate. So I think it was just a really good way to break up the momentum of the prosecution.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you had any other reasoning for doing that. I guess the timeline was something, but it seems she was so rehearsed but not well prepared, right?
No, for me, what made me laugh was she's your typical, like an abuelita. No, somebody. Are we talking about Ms. Lopez?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, the way I felt like the way she was. Abuelita, which means grandma.
Oh, really?
Meaning, and someone not from this country, and honestly, having experienced hearing plenty of friends, not necessarily my family because of not being in judicial like systems like that, but I'm just saying like people who just don't care. She's like, what does this have to do with me?
I'll
like
leave when
I don't
I said
care.
I leave.
Like she's like, and then and the thing was that I feel like didn't necessarily hurt the prosecution side or the defense side, because she didn't necessarily actually like, no, I'm just not gonna. Because when she confronted her saying that, didn't you say that you were going to make this before? And she's like, yeah, no, I just haven't done it. And it's one of those things where she probably, as a language barrier, doesn't exactly say, like, know that that's considered lying.
Maybe.
She's, you know what I'm saying? Because some people just say things to get out of it. And that's what she
Chris,
meant.
why do you say maybe?
No, that could be the excuse, is that, it's the language that caused me to say it that way.
No, but okay.
Yeah, but from my perspective, I mean, she was just a shill.
She didn't care.
She was a shill for the defense. She was going to leave the country so she wouldn't have to testify. They were probably...
It seemed like they
a bank account waiting for her.
Yeah, that maybe
there.
they arranged it to some degree, and so that was the first time that you were wondering, like, the defense is really not, playing too clean.
Is that
here.
why everyone kept saying Mr. Johnny? Like, because it was all like she knew him or something? Like
exactly. Like, why are you so close? You know?
Yeah.
Whatever Mr. Johnny says.
She honestly just seemed like she didn't care, and that Johnny thought that it was going to be helpful, and it just backfired because she's like, no, I really don't care, and I don't remember.
I think
Like, I don't care.
She
I
didn't
just
seem
go to
well
my
prepared.
country
You're
right
right,
now.
though. You said because she didn't seem well prepared.
Yeah, like
she was supposed to say 11:15.
Or 10:15.
Yeah,
But then they're saying Marcia almost established it as 10. Apparently, she said 10 o'clock before.
Oh, see, I was thinking 11.
So I'm wondering if the time difference wasn't that great, you know. So
the 15 minutes was a make or break because he couldn't make it to the flight, and so she was supposed to establish that line of evidence, but she was a very bad witness.
And you think for her, she's probably just thinking 10:15 thing, you know? Like,
Hey, I'm an advocate for that. Guess what? 15 minutes for me is the same thing.
So
I'll be late.
So I mean, I don't know if she was just really badly prepared, or if they were trying to kind of push her to do more, and she just didn't get there. I don't know.
Well, you saw F. Lee Bailey get all kind of. Was that the moment where at one point he got all worked up?
Oh, Furman.
Oh, that was during Furman. He got worked up and then decided to go. But I don't think she showed up on the stand the way they wanted her to.
Of course not. Yeah.
I honestly don't think that she knew how serious the case was either.
But I think she was a prepared witness that had a bank account waiting someplace in another
so she
country.
Was like, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So Marcia can't stay late. She has to watch her kids. The court is adjourned for the day. But then she doesn't go home to the kids. She calls her ex-husband,
the pressure
Gordon,
got to her,
and asks him to watch the kids for the night. And then she goes to prepare for Rosa the next day. Crazy.
Well, that's just... that's so unfair to me that her husband would say that, because it's not like it was planned prior to her asking for the recess.
Oh, you mean when he's like on air and he's calling her out?
Meaning like, no, I had to go pick up the kids. We got back to the office. More things happened. I had time to think about it. And I chose that moment to call you. Yeah. You know, but you're also the father of my children. The one thing I will say about her, and I know that it's not fair, if he at any moment said, it's just now temporary until the trial's over, I don't know why she wouldn't agree to that.
Which he seemed to be saying, like, let me just hang on to them until...
Yeah.
He wanted them for good, didn't he?
Well, he was trying to get primary custody, so I think she was worried. I think it's one of those things where, like, no, if I let him have it now, then I'll just never get them back. Yeah. And that is scary.
And he was an opportunist, and he was... Because people do things for their own reasons. It wasn't because of her. It was because of him. He went on TV because he saw it as being an opportunity to get the kids for good. And show what a bad mother she was.
But I don't know if that's opportunity so much as I want my kids, you know?
Yeah, so, well, exactly. But it's not that he was a bad guy for doing it. He was just saying, you know, he had his own perspective.
Yeah, and it sounds like the late nights or something that were there before. Yeah. But there's nothing that could prepare you for a trial like this. So, yeah.
Divorces in custody are nasty.
Yeah. But I can't believe that Cochran decides to say something about the child care issue in court. I was like, really, dude? That's not cool.
And that just speaks to the time where, you know, it wasn't like a very accepted practice and people kind of looked at it chauvinistically, and now we're at a time where, you know, a father can take leave when he had got a newborn.
The way he said it, though, too, was like, at this point, I felt like, whoa. Go back to like your morals and who you are as a person, and don't dismiss her, because I think he just dismissed her as a person.
He went too far, though.
He just didn't give two shits about who Marcia Clark was.
Yeah.
Like, so he's gonna say what he's gonna say, and he's like,
but that's why she took the day.
He said it like, handle your shit.
Yeah. And Marcia took the day. I mean, they were applauding her when she walked out after that, because she came back and everybody knew it. I mean, we felt it when we were sitting there. We're like, no, she has to take care of her kids. This isn't right what you guys are doing.
But I love that she stood up and said something.
It was a good moment.
It was
for her.
Great. Wow. So then we find out about Cochran and Barbara as he's walking out of the courtroom. They're like, this is your chance. Tell us about... Apparently he had past domestic violence.
Yeah, or that came out of nowhere, right?
Yeah. Which was crazy.
It's not uncommon. I mean, everybody has skeletons in their closet. And what was shocking to me was the phone call that he had with Barbara. Yes. You know, where he's like, hey, I've got this property. Maybe I'll give you the money. And you just see the shady dealings that people have.
And I felt
like I felt like Ryan Murphy set us up, because I felt like he kind of started off with like Marcia and Darden really just seeming like the aimless prosecutors. Now there's this real story built around them, and I'm kind of like falling in love with them.
Right.
And now I'm like, Johnny was initially like the go-to guy who like was waving the banner, and now you're starting to see like this thing and that thing, and it just feels like
it's like it makes you question his character.
It is, but it's also a balance of who people are. That's why we have to grow up and accept and understand that it is what it is. And my thing is that for again, I'm gonna point this out, for like some of the YouTube commenters were saying that we were supporters of wife beaters and murdering whatever.
We get lovely comments.
Yes, and please keep talking like you know. But but my whole thing is that me personally, and sorry for those who don't like it when I compare myself, but that's the only comparison I'm gonna do. Growing up, like certain things that I was exposed to or like saw, like it's not that I support domestic violence. I just may have never been around where it got so serious or where I had to like fight it. I mean, I think maybe at one point it was a bit of a norm to me, but again, like I said, now that times are changing and now that people have gone further with their domestic violence, I get it. But as far as Johnny Cochran goes, I can see it being like a grab of the wrist, a fighting. You don't know, like passionate couples are passionate couples. Like
I had my ex-wife. I was married for a year. I was really good at it, but my ex-wife, she punched me in the face.
But that's what I'm saying.
You know, it's like
And some people will argue that whatever. What did you do, Chris?
Right.
You know,
exactly.
some people and others will say it doesn't matter.
I did nothing. I wouldn't touch it because I
exactly. But then there's men who will say I won't hit a female, but I'll hit a bitch.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's all sides of it. Point blank. Period. We're not supposed to be hitting each other. We're supposed to be civil, but at the time and place, your emotions do take over, and it's a matter of like how much you can control yourself. And I think that's why it plays a part, and that's why people are really trying to analyze it, and why they're trying to dismiss the domestic violence part. Yeah, like that's why it's focused on the murder, not the violence.
Yeah, of course. And I think for the case, that had to be the focus, because at least for the defense side, really, you know, domestic violence because you're an abuser does not mean you're a murderer.
Right.
Now, we view the same two as almost hand in hand today, and we know that a lot of times things escalate.
Right, of course.
But I think they were making a point that the two are not the same. But what is curious to me is Cochran essentially paying off the ex-wife. Yeah. So it feels like maybe this is some meat to this domestic violence.
He chose his words wisely.
Yeah,
there must have been some meat to it.
Some real meat to
it. He was going to give her all the profit from the property.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, it could. I'm not justifying it. It could be a push and a shove and this and that. So that's what's like unfortunate because.
You never know what it is, and there's differences, and you know, people are people. Once you're in somebody else's shoes, I mean, that's why, and I think we saw it from different perspectives inside this episode. That if you go inside this person's shoes, okay, that could make sense. Yeah. They say I've heard before that you know, everything makes sense for the person who's doing it from their perspective.
Of course, yeah.
Absolutely.
You know.
So we see that OJ gets a little bit pissed with the defense team because he wants to be in on these things. He saw how poorly the whole Rosa Lopez thing happened in the courtroom, and now he wants to know ahead of time what's going to go on so he can have a word.
Yeah.
Interesting moment, huh?
Right.
It was just like really pointless too.
But
she didn't need to be up there.
But I think, you know, he's probably getting over some of the like shell-shockedness of being in jail, and he's getting comfortable with his team, and now he's like, I want to be a part of this, and he can see which way things are swaying in the courtroom day by day. So now he feels like he needs to be very actively engaged.
Right.
And I'm wondering if that's gonna.
I'm sorry, forgive me for interrupting. He is getting a little bitter and going a little hard though too. The way he tried to get. He said, "Bob, what did he say? Something about
Bob, get out of here or whatever."
I'll call you when I rattle my zipper.
Yeah, but I think the real OJ's coming out.
Absolutely.
This character that he played, and even though we know that yes, there's a traumatic event that could cause him to recoil. But now we're getting to see who he really is, and there's a lot on the line for him.
And I think you also remember he's writing the check, so he you know
that's true.
You're paying these lawyers, and you're starting to look at the money dwindle, and you're going, wait a minute, let me get in on this.
Unfortunately, he never wrote the check for the family. You know, the families never saw more than 1%.
Yeah. He moved to Florida and
the $30 million they were supposed to get.
He avoided. Wow. He avoided all
the Simpsons. I mean the Browns. The Goldmans.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, never like they got a $30 million judgment afterwards. Never saw.
Took advantage of the home exemption in Florida. But
that's disgusting.
Oh my gosh.
Because legally they can't take your home in Florida, so now he has a place in Florida. Yeah.
So Marcia goes, she gets her hair done.
Oh.
What'd you think of the cut?
For the sake of Marcia, was beautiful, but
no, that's the sisterhood.
In my head, I thought it was gonna be like the straightened, like cute blowout.
I'm just like, what do you mean? She came in to change her hair. Why did you just cut it?
Yeah, and
make it tighter. Give her some tighter, like Jerry curls. Like, get out of here.
That was like a throwback haircut.
Does anybody here think that maybe they did it like a black person's hair, tight little curls? You don't think so?
No.
It was Gil Garcetti that sent her to this person.
Name? What's the woman's name?
Was like, no.
What was the woman's name who, the one that recently came out fighting, who worked for the NA?
Rachel Dolezal?
Oh, that was claiming to be black.
Remember how she started like perming her hair?
What they did to Marcia, though, I don't think she was. I think they thought that was a style.
It reminded me of if you saw the movie Coming to America.
Soul Glow.
It's Soul Glow. Yes, exactly. Eddie Murphy. Yeah, Soul.
Yeah.
I thought of that only because of the shape of it.
See, you thought of that too.
Well, no, I don't think that's why they did it.
But you thought of that too.
I did.
It looked awful.
But any haircut. I mean, but I thought of that
tight
from
little curls. Yeah.
But I thought of that from the first time I saw her.
Yeah.
Just of those the curls. But my thing is that it just. First of all, he said Farrah, so we all thought something different. We're like, oh, hell yeah, Charlie's Angels, get it. But then...
Yeah, that didn't look like Farrah Fawcett.
I'm like, you couldn't even put, like, some color in there or something? Like...
And they said, who turned her into Rick James?
And then and then you saw the scrutiny she got. And you know what? Had she just stayed in her regular stuff...
She walked in there with a smile.
Happy,
Oh, that sucks.
But had she just kept
her
style...
But you see how it does hurt
media.
when people say that. And, like, when people always say, like, you know, be confident in yourself to women, we get told that all the time. And... For instance, I have a joke like at work. I do no makeup Sundays. I don't really wear makeup often, but regardless, even though I act like I'm confident, I'll get things like, what, did you boycott makeup today? Or 70, go like put some makeup on, go put some lipstick on. Yeah. I'll get that said to me. only because they're comfortable with me saying that. Low key, it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt a little bit, but it's one of those things where it's like I have to brush it off because that's the part that I play. Other women would argue that and say, no, you better stand for yourself and say something. I don't care that much, but it sucks that you have to go through that. So I always get heartbroken for to think of someone who's more weak than I am.
But it's not even more weak. It was like that lens, because what we saw in this episode was all the TV broadcast. They clear their programming just for the trial. So not only is she getting that scrutiny, she's on every single channel.
Nothing made her cry until that almost.
But remember those guys that were watching it, and they're like, oh, they should bring Kato back to the show. Like they were watching it like it's a TV show.
Exactly.
And so, but that's part of the deal now as a prosecutor or as a lawyer. How you're perceived by the jury is going to make a big difference, and you're going to impart that to your client, and it goes hand in hand. So the look is part of presentation.
Right. So really quick, as she's walking in, Darden is talking to the writer. He was a newspaper writer. His name is Dennis or something. How he was like, I can't believe that you.
He leaned in when Darden gave him that his opening statement about the N-word. He's the one that was behind him. He was like, what is he saying right now? So he's the perfect example of what Johnny Cochran was trying to let him know.
So he's saying that he's pissed at Darden for going against a black man, saying that he's helping the racist LAPD and that whole back and forth, which I thought was interesting, because Darden goes on to say, OJ's really white at the end of the day. He's...
But I think it was just good to remind, I guess us as the viewers of that kind of racial tension.
Oh, sure. Exactly.
This is when it really did start to break along this racial line.
But Darden's argument was good, and the other guy's argument was good. Both were realities that different people lived.
Absolutely. Let's get to Furman. He is now on the stand, and he's recounting his, when he found the glove and all that. Man. Sorry, I just got really there's a lot to this. Talk.
Well, it was excellent testimony, right? I think we're all in agreement. So far, Furman is a perfect witness. So
for who?
For the prosecution. He's great. He's wonderful now.
So far,
he said everything he's supposed to say, and and
he didn't seem scared. You couldn't really budge him.
And when Effley Bailey rattled him or tried to rattle him, he seemed relatively unrattled.
But excellent
but
interrogation
he's also a devil
technique.
Dog.
Excellent interrogation technique by Effley Bailey. And I think you said it before when you said he hemmed him up. Right? So just pinning him down. So if anybody that ever said that you said the N-word would be a liar, is that so? And he says, yes. Anybody, that means all of them that were to say that would call you a liar. You'd say that they were all liars. That type of questioning is filled with assumption and presupposition,
of course,
that there's a bunch of people that are going to come back out, and it's meant to rattle the person on the stand, but also
now the jury hears all of them. But here the big thing for the defense is now to produce all of them, because if you don't produce anyone and you just said all of them, it's going to look very suspicious. But I'm sure the defense has got a couple of tricks up their sleeve. So I'm
sure. I also like that Effley Bailey had mentioned that he was a Marine, because I think that that was one of those things. Like, look, I know this type of man.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, you're going to tell me you didn't say?
And Marines are a very specific type of people, and that's why I meant he's a devil dog. Like they're vulgar. They're very vulgar.
And he said you're used to
when they're together.
D&D, he said.
Thank you for your service, and I support our military. I really do. But I'm just saying that it's a different lifestyle, and it's a very different talk.
But he said drunk and disorderly. So I mean, he's painting out the picture that you go after people. And you go after them, and you're willing to do whatever because you're the ultimate authority.
Sure,
is there? There's the hierarchy and the rank, and if you catch people doing stuff.
I felt like he was trying to say don't act like I don't know you, man. Regardless if I don't know you, I know you.
I loved the camera movements. This
is
typical.
Yeah, you
Ryan
always say that
Murphy.
Ryan Murphy.
You love Ryan Murphy.
With the sweeps and the zoom in and sweep, very just dramatic.
Yeah,
it was awesome for that specific scene right there. That's pretty much, actually no, we have a little bit more to go. Marcia breaks down crying. She says she's not a public personality. She can't handle all this attention.
And I think that was huge because again, like I said, this was the first time any court case had been broadcast like this. I mean, they were blacking out they were blacking out all these daytime programming and getting more advertising buyers dollars through that. And so for her, she literally went from being a prosecutor who no one's watching prosecutors on a day-by-day basis. And so it just really, she went to public figure overnight. And as a female, she was scrutinized heavily in her style and her choices and her hair.
The Naked magazine picture,
And
I can't
I
believe
have to say though, that is just the worst. And I kid you not, like, it's the second they said that, and when she was like, no, that's me, it's just one of those things where, like, I always try to tell my friends, like, man, I know, like, they love taking naked pictures of themselves and they send them.
Don't do that.
I always say, and they're like, no, it's my boyfriend. I'm like, you don't know.
But
You
this was
don't know
but
what
this was
people
her
use
husband,
against.
though. What a
But
betrayal.
but her ex-husband now, and for a reason.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying, like, it's one of those things that just, even in a situation like that, how heartbreaking that is. But for someone to that's exposure.
Yeah.
Men don't get that.
Yeah.
Right.
And if they do, it don't really matter. So, like, that's the worst part, because now people can just look at her and be like, man, you a hoe because you have a naked picture on the magazine.
It's not just about naked pictures, though. It's anything that you have that would incriminate you in any way, shape, or form. If you have pictures like that out there, people can blackmail you. They can extort you.
And at that time, because I feel like now, not such a big deal.
It's like,
Well, it happens all the time.
But
now.
at that time,
Yeah, but even now, that's my body. That
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah. But at that time,
don't
it was
do
like
that stuff.
majorly devastating. You're being held up as the example, you know.
And she dresses very waspy, so what makes anyone think that she's not going to be that much more hurt about that kind of exposure? Like,
right.
oof.
All right, that's our episode. Let's get to news and gossip real quick. I know we have just a couple minutes left. So this week, man, news and gossip. So somebody found, there was a construction worker back in 1998 who was working on O.J. Simpson's house, finds a knife buried somewhere on the property, turns it into an off-duty officer. That officer doesn't turn it in, he keeps it. He's like, I'm just going to keep this as a memorabilia. Yeah. 20 years later, whatever it is now, this past January, he was talking to a friend about framing it up, because now he's a retired cop. He wants to frame it up and just put, like, I guess the case number engraved on it. And his friend was like, wait a minute. And comes forward, and now they took the knife away, and they're testing it. But Shaka, you read on TMZ that...
Well, now the guy's saying that he had alerted the police, and they just weren't interested back in, like, 98 or whatever he got the knife. But they are saying that the knife, at least the medical examiner that examined the wounds in the body, is saying the knife could have inflicted the wounds that were on the body, like the amount of length of the blade that was inserted. So,
but because of double jeopardy, you can't return. He was.
And then apparently officers at the time thought it might have been done with a buck knife, and it's a buck knife in question. But we'll see what they turn up.
That's so crazy. I can't wait to see.
Yeah,
and what a weirdo for wanting to keep the knife, by the way.
That's kind of strange.
Yeah.
And so O.J. Simpson's former manager, Norman Pardo, says that O.J. read about this, obviously, or saw it on TV, because he has a TV in his jail cell, and he's not worried about it.
As you would if you were O.J., right?
Yeah. He just kind of shook his head like, when is this going to end? Like, blah. Thought that was
the type of person that he is now just, like, boggles me.
I know.
Let's just hope he doesn't come after us.
Oh, gosh.
Come after me, homie. I'm not worried about it. Just saying.
Where can everyone find you guys?
You could all find me on Twitter at Stephanie Giorgi, and on Instagram at Stephanie Giorgi.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Shaka Strong.
Find me on Twitter at Chris Howard Live, and then at legendarylivingdaily.com and legendarylivingtv.com.
And you guys can find me on all social media at Pegah Rad. Please follow me. I need some friends.
We'll be your friend.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.